mi remo en el agua, llevo tu remo en el mío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. El día le irá pudiendo poco a poco al frío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. Sobre todo creo que no todo está perdido. Tanta lágrima y yo soy un vaso vacío. Oigo una voz que me llama, casi un suspiro. Rema, rema, rema. Rema, rema, rema. En esta orilla del mundo, lo que no expresa es baldío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. Yo muy serio voy remando, muy adentro sonrío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. Sobre todo creo que no todo está perdido. Tanta lágrima y yo soy un vaso vacío. Oigo una voz que me llama, casi un suspiro. Rema, rema, rema. Rema, rema, rema. Clavo mi remo en el agua, llevo tu remo en el mío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río.
Kia ora everybody, you are listening to Voice of Aroha on frequency 106.1 FM from Wellington, New Zealand. This show is generously supported by our partner and sponsor, Host International NZ, Wellington Access Radio, and Changemakers Resettlement Forum. Today joining us is Carolina and Andreas. Carolina is a creative from Argentina. She is focused on helping newly arrived migrant women to adjust to living in Wellington, learning New Zealand Sign Language, and volunteering for good causes through design. Andreas is an IT professional from Ecuador and Argentina. He is focused on helping vulnerable migrants and applying his skills to make a positive impact in the world. Both of them have been living in Aotearoa for almost 3 years and started a migrant help group when COVID hit. Andreas, I hope I said your name correctly.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
That's good. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do?
Sure, Carol, you want to start?
Yeah. So we met in Argentina about 9 years ago. And then at a point we decided to move to a different country just to start a new life. And so we did to Sydney. After that, we've been in Sydney for 2.5 years and we came to New Zealand to settle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially, we met in Argentina and we planned to migrate together. And ideally, originally, we wanted to move to New Zealand, but our visas were first approved for Australia. So we went there and worked towards residency, which with that we used to move to Aotearoa. And we've been here for that amount of time and just working and trying to help as much as we can because, our experiences taught us that, a lot of migrants need a lot of help.
What made you guys choose New Zealand? I feel like a lot of people would have just been happy to stay in Australia because a lot of people actually just go there after coming to New Zealand.
Right. So we wanted New Zealand because once we did a research, we found out that New Zealand had a lot of nature and we really like that ambience. Also, New Zealand, we feel is very friendly. Um, I was going to study animation and film as well, which I did. That was one of my main wishes in life. So I did here. And also, we wanted to come to Aotearoa because it's a small place and we felt more comfortable in a smaller city.
Yeah, we both come from quite big cities. Buenos Aires is maybe about 15 million people, and my first city, Guayaquil, is about 4 million. We're ready for a slim down. And essentially, nature, a society that is more welcoming and with all its issues, Aotearoa, New Zealand still is comparatively better than Australia. And even though you can make a bit more money in Australia, I think New Zealand has a better society overall. And also, we definitely like the fact that, well, personally, I like the fact that the political system is stable and also more representative.
Mm. And I'm interesting to ask you a question, guys. How did you find your resettlement process here? Like, even the migrants' journey from Australia and New Zealand. Was it tough or easy?
Well, in my case, I was looking for a job in my industry for a long time. And actually, New Zealand gave me that because I am currently working in design. So for me, that part was positive, though the change of ambience, because in Sydney, the city is more like evident. And in Wellington, we started living in like out of the city. That change of ambience was very shocking for me. So I needed to adapt. And I felt a little bit more alone than in Australia. Maybe because of less people being there. So I started some counseling sessions. I was lucky because I was entitled to that. So yeah, for me that has been very positive. So yeah.
I always think that for me, my protection bubble has been IT because there's always been a way for me to find employment and thus to secure a salary. So I've been very privileged in that sense. Nevertheless, still, moving all your belongings, well, actually, first reducing your belongings, then moving what you can carry um, um, to Aotearoa, and then securing housing has been our main issue. We've been in mixed of rentals or some Airbnbs, and at some point we even started living in a tiny house. So yeah, that has been a bit rough in the terms of settlement, but everyone is feeling the housing crisis. But the fortunate employment that I got in both countries, in Australia and New Zealand, uh, really helped us to weather any crisis that we had. So yeah, it's mostly been positive. It's definitely we feel like in New Zealand, Kiwis tend to be a bit shyer and not as talkative as Latin Americans that we are. I guess in Australia, it was a bit different because there was, I mean, I guess we found people that were a bit more warm-hearted, but that's always about perspective because we met a lot of nice migrants here and a lot of nice people from, I guess, different backgrounds, including a group of Maori that I work with, and they're always been very nice to us. It's just a matter of cultural differences. But yeah, generally it's been positive. You're right.
Yeah, that's cool. And in terms of changing that environment from your home country into here, did you find like this big change from New Zealand and Argentina and Latin American countries to here, or do you find it like it's easier to integrate and to socially, especially in social life?
Well, I guess in terms of cultural shock, I've been to different countries. I've interacted. I've actually went to school in the U.S. for a few years, so it wasn't that big. However, I definitely see that the formality here is not that big.
Mm.
I guess in South America, there's a more formal society. In employment, you're not best friends, or you're not really big friends with your boss. um, that's one. That's a positive thing, of course. But also, I've noticed in New Zealand, and then you can maybe make your comment about that, Caro, that there is not a culture of being direct, but
Mm-hmm.
being very indirect sometimes, and that clashes a lot with Latin Americans. At least that's been my experience. What do you think, Caro?
Yeah, well, yeah, I feel the same. I think what I have to do in New Zealand is once I went more into the culture and also working here, I realized that I needed to sort of adapt to some indirection, like speak. And yeah, that really needed to be developed. But I did now, so I understand more like the sort of New Zealand way of doing things. And yeah, that's better. But I haven't lost my like Latin American like heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, I actually had to ask my coworkers, saying like, it's okay if you can ask me directly without hesitation. It's okay. You can tell me things that are not working directly, via email, via Slack, via phone, whatever. Don't be shy about it. It's fine. It's a cultural thing, and most of them have actually learned. There's a few that are still a bit shy, but it's okay. It's kind of cute sometimes.
I also
Um,
sorry,
oh, go ahead.
I also found out that I was more confident with like some cultures in the sort of big group,
Mm,
than others because they're more direct. Like for example, people from the Pacific Islands, like I feel more direct. People from India as well, more talkative, and they talk about feelings, which some
mm.
other cultures don't. So I sort of started building a relationship with friends from different backgrounds, but also because of the communication.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that's something I actually noticed within even refugee communities where as soon as they kind of see someone from like another like ethnic community in a group, they immediately like kind of feel at ease. They feel like they have someone they can relate to, which I think is pretty cool. I feel like we can create more kind of diverse bubbles. Um, but Carolina, I wanted to ask you about how you help migrant women who are newly arrived to New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, sure. So I one day was thinking on my arrival to New Zealand with Andres, and also how I needed to do some research on where the women's help is, because sometimes you need some counseling or you need to know where to do your like female checks, some other stuff for moms as well, where to take their children. So I started making a list and I found it very helpful for me. And I really wanted to help other women as well. So I did like 2 or 3 meetings with some other women. And I just talked about where to find a job, some other resources. Yeah, so about life in general in New Zealand. And I feel that that could be a help for me as well. So I really like to interact with women, and yeah,
How
just
was it affected with the whole COVID situation, and how were you two personally affected by that?
yeah. So we were lucky because we kept our jobs during lockdown, which was really good. And as we couldn't like go out much either, we tried to donate a little bit more, um, and be in touch with other migrants who lost their jobs, for example. Not only that, but also we hosted some trivias at that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, online trivias, just to, I don't know, just to have some fun, because we hold that mental health is very important. And sometimes during the lockdown, you can be a little bit affected, especially if you lost your job.
Mm-hmm. And then, guys, I heard about it, and if you tell us more to us and also to the audience about the initiative that you both started, it's like something you have created, that group of helping the migrants people, especially during the COVID on lockdown period. You have did that. So tell us more about that and what did you find? How much need is needed for the new arrival migrants and the situation we're being displaced in times of pandemic and times of lack of housing and etc.
Well, yeah. After COVID hit, we started getting news about the different help that was available and how, unfortunately, the government didn't go far enough for vulnerable migrants that were not citizens or permanent residents. So then we decided, okay, we're going to try to find ways to help. And one of them was to create a website, immigrant.kiwi, where you could have a list of resources that were available for anyone. After the government started that particular help to foreign nationals, we also linked them to that, and we created a WhatsApp group where anyone that came on our radar, we added them and we started talking to them, sending them different ways to help, organizations, initiatives. At some point, we even helped to buy groceries for a group of people that were, I believe, in the South Island, right?
Yes,
Nelson, yeah. And that helped. I also sent a bit more money to other people that needed to move or maybe needed a few nights at a hostel while they figure things out. And I started also reaching out to other people saying, hey, can you host migrants? Because at that point during the lockdown, we were on the small tiny house and we really didn't have space. Eventually, we found a few people that were interested in hosting, but that was after the government help. So that was less of an urgency at the moment. So we want to grow this. We want to make sure that any vulnerable migrant at least has a week to a month of temporary housing, while they figure out what to do. And at the same time, ever since we moved to Australia back then, we always were inundated with news about work exploitation, migrants being underpaid, exploited, work with conditions that were not expected by locals. The initiative is to create a list and a platform to warn migrants, saying, this employer has received so many complaints, and we definitely want to go further and verify those complaints, of course. Therefore, at least to get a warning that saying, avoid this type of employer, prefer this other employer because they're going to treat you better. And we are definitely willing to work with work rights advocates or unions or any other group that has that information to collate into one single source. And going back to the housing, if we create a network with more people that are interested in hosting migrants, just like we described, then maybe we can provide a temporary relief. So a vulnerable migrant can get some stability and maybe find a better job, and basically not be at the mercy of an exploitative employer. Those are two of the focus. And one other focus that I am very interested in to fostering Maori migrant relations, because we definitely need to work together, generally for anti-racism campaigns, for understanding of Te Tiriti, and basically our relationships with Aotearoa. We are in a very particular position because we're not Pākehā and we're not Maori. So we both are recipients of some privilege in some occasions and also some oppression. We are in a very particular situation that we can be very helpful towards Maori rights, and at the same time enhance ours. So it's it's a solidarity working space here.
I really like that. I think it's really important for us to build bridges between those communities, because I feel like that's something that's really lacking in the space. We usually just kind of have our own group, or refugees are just together, migrants are just together, the indigenous are just together. And I don't think that's right. I feel like we need to kind of learn how we can build these relationships with one another, because at the end of the day, that solidarity is what's going to help us when anyone needs that help. And yeah, I really like, for example, what you said about kind of warning migrants about exploitative environments, because unfortunately that is the reality that they end up working in conditions that the locals themselves wouldn't accept. So they shouldn't be acceptable for migrants either.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm also very interested in working because I actually, talking with Kodrian, I realized that there is a particular category of family sponsorship of asylum seekers that they don't get the same support as the main applicant, right? So that will be another segment that we will definitely want to help.
It's interesting. Andres, I want to tell if you heard that you talked about some government support. Maybe you have heard about the recent program they called Visitor Care that been led by, I think, Red Cross, who was supporting the migrants. So just a question for you guys. Have you heard about this program? How did you find this program? Is it really working or not? And how much government, if you know about some statistic, the money put that, and what type of receiving this help it was like useful, or what kind of, generally, because you guys are more connected to the community and to the people from migrant people, so you know how is the feeling? It was good or about okay or not? Tell us more if you have heard about this.
Yes, that's the same as the foreign national help that the government started through visitor care of the Red Cross. Yes, of the people that we helped get that support, most will say that yes, it was helpful. For example, rent was paid directly, so they didn't get directly the money. They actually had to, from my understanding, had to prove that they were renting a house or a room, and the money will be sent to the landlord from the help center. They did get some money for food as well, and I think some other expenses. Most migrants that came to us said that the support was very helpful. They got the funds relatively fast. There were a few cases where I actually had to connect them with another person in the Office of Ethnic Communities to see why they were being denied, but there were very few cases. However, in other situations that I found someone had a big health issue and needed an MRI, and that was not covered. And I don't know if that person had a health insurance, but it was really expensive. So I don't know if that help was able to be used for that. So mostly good, I will say, but very limited. And I think it's ending in November or December. So next year we're probably going to have more cases of need that is not going to be answered. So I don't know if hopefully the government can extend it, but I don't know yet.
Yep. And one, oh, now just go ahead with your question. Then I have maybe the last two questions. We are less than 4 minutes left. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just interested to know, like, do you guys know your demographics? Like, what kind of groups are usually, do you find needing the support? Is it very diverse? Is it very like a specific group of migrants?
Okay, so from our experiences on the group, we started on the Latin American community. So a lot of that, specifically work and holiday or students or mainly work and holidays and or students. We started getting other people from other backgrounds. I believe we sign up a person from India and from, well, Brazil is also Latin America, but they don't speak Spanish. So yeah, and maybe a few backpackers from Europe as well. But we don't have like really hard numbers because we started growing this group before the help, and then after the foreign national help, we pointed the people on our website to the foreign national help, and then we stopped kind of being the person of first contact.
Yeah,
the website was the source of first contact. So yeah, but we are definitely very open to growing it for everyone, every migrant of that particular group of students, temporary workers, essentially anyone that is not a person. Essentially, anyone that is not a permanent resident or citizen. Oh yeah, another thing about temporary work visas, that the wage subsidy probably helped them quite a lot, because of employers that sponsor people, um, they receive the wage subsidy and probably pass them along. However, in one case, I remember one person came to me and said that the employer hadn't paid them, and he didn't know if they got the wage subsidy. So the only thing I could do is point them to community lawyers, to see if they can do something like that. But yeah, we're definitely working, and we have friends from different non-Latin American friends, right? And we are definitely welcome to helping. Carolina, for example, helped a lady from France, right?
From France,
Yeah. So yeah, we are open to any group, as long as you're a migrant and you need. Yeah.
That's great. Tell us, Caroline and Andres, maybe in the last 2 minutes is left, about your group message, and also what are the next steps? What are you working on to support the Kiwi migrants?
You want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to tell everyone that they're not alone. There will be always someone to help, and we are here as well. And then they have to feel welcome to contact us as well. Yeah.
Right.
And I would like to say, yes, if you can help, if you can host a migrant, or if you know about work exploitation, we can definitely use your help. If you go to immigrant.kiwi, there are ways to contact. There's an email and a mobile phone as well. And in terms of next steps, we want to grow the housing network. At the moment, we have 2 volunteers that are willing and able to host vulnerable migrants. We want to create this work exploitation platform, so we can get complaints anonymously. And of course, to grow and create that, we will be finalizing creating an incorporated group or a charity, and then getting some funding through some source. We are still on that level. But if you support anti-racism, housing for all, and labor and migrant rights, and you like to take action, yeah, please go to immigrant.kiwi, and we would love to get your help.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Carolina and Andres, for your time and being guest of the week for our show, Voice of Aroha. And now we are going to the break, and we'll continue the segment with our co-host and other segments of the show.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to Voice of Aroha on Wellington Access Radio 106.1. And this section is called Life After University. I just came up with this topic because, personal experience. Like, I went to university and then I graduated. And then I was like, the question in my head was like, what am I going to do next? And I found quite fascinating to share my experience, also the experience of different New Zealanders from different backgrounds. So join me in the studio today. I have a special guest, Charlotte. Kia ora.
Yes, Kira, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to have you in the show. And just before we get started in the deep questions, could you tell us about yourself and your background?
Yes, sure. My name is Charlotte Wells. I'm a New Zealander and I was born in Wellington, New Zealand. I got the opportunity to attend a multicultural high school and I had the chance to make friends with students from many different cultures, which sparked my passion for cultural diversity. I started volunteering as a high school student in a homework club working with refugee and migrant students. This work inspired me to study education at university.
Well, that's amazing because if you may know, this radio show is hosted by, former refugees and migrants. So it's great to have you in the show.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and tell us about you, what do you do in that spare time?
Yes, so I'm passionate about experiencing different cultures, so I love travelling and spending time with my friends who are from diverse cultural backgrounds. So I have friends from lots of different countries, Asian countries and other ethnicities like Indian. We enjoy visiting each other's houses and learning to make traditional food and participating in cultural celebrations. I am also in a cross-cultural relationship. My husband is from India and I love the time I spent with my new family, which is his family. They live in India and I like learning about Indian culture. I also love to travel and I enjoy traveling overseas, and I have visited India several times and also Australia where my relatives are. So in New Zealand, I love to travel to Auckland because of the multicultural nature of the city. I wind down by walking in beautiful Wellington, listening to music and attending concerts. So this is what I do in my spare time.
Wow, you do that a lot. You actually do quite a lot. You know how this section is called Life After University?
Yes.
So what was the dream? Because everyone has a dream when they get to university.
Yes.
What was the dream that you had?
Exactly right. So my dream role is to be an international student advisor, which involves providing academic advice and pastoral care to international students throughout their learning journey. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has reduced the availability of positions in this area. However, I have been fortunate enough to do aspects of this role in my job at English Teaching College, which has been a challenging but rewarding experience. So I hope to do this role as a full-time job in the future once the COVID-19 situation has improved and the international education sector has recovered. So I intend to use this time to obtain a driver's license and continue to use my second language, Hindi, which I'm trying to learn in order to become more qualified for this position.
Wow.
Yes, I have a dream to have this role one day.
Wow, that's amazing. And by the way, I didn't know
Yes.
that Hindi was your second language, which is amazing.
Still learning it a
You're
little
still
bit.
learning.
So I'm not fluent, unfortunately.
And from you just said you're an English teacher, right? So that's what you're
Yes.
doing now?
So I do tutoring at Victoria University. I also work with students in English Teaching College. So I'll tell you about the different roles that I do. So I am very grateful to have found work in the fields of research and education after graduation. So my main position is actually in research as a research interviewer at Research New Zealand. So my job involves interviewing for government clients of a wide range of government services. So the research participants are quite varied and they can be business owners or members of the public. Most of my research work is done over the telephone, but it can also be done outside in the field. So my secondary job, as I mentioned before, is in English Teaching College, ETC. So I run an activities program for the students and coordinate a weekly English speaking club. So I do a bit of teaching, but it's more informal because unfortunately I don't have a TESOL degree. And I also help out there doing administration work at times and support international students when they arrive at the language school. Due to COVID-19, we have a small number of international students, so I'm spending my time there supporting refugees and migrants. During the trimester, I also work as a tutor at Victoria University Faculty of Education during trimester time, so that is my more teaching experience. So I've tutored courses called Education 101 and 221, which attract students from diverse cultural backgrounds. So these tutorials provide me opportunities to support student learning and the chance to be in a mentoring role and offer pastoral care to students strengthens my love of education.
Was it hard for you to find your passion, or was it like something that you always had in your heart?
Yes, that's a very good question. I believe that when I was a high school student, getting to know different cultural groups gave me a passion, but it wasn't until I started at Victoria and started volunteering with international students that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was very impressed with the work ethic of international students, and I felt that I made very strong connections when I was supporting them. And I have an overall goal of trying to strengthen the relationship between New Zealand-born students and international students.
Well, that's amazing. And just like, going back to university.
Yes.
And, final year.
Yes.
The big question comes to the mind of every single student. What I'm going to do next.
Yes.
Now that you have been through that, and I've been through that as well.
Yes.
What advice would you give to, those third-year students?
Yes. So for students who are in their final year of university, I highly recommend that they use their last year to get involved. So there are plenty of interesting opportunities in different faculties which give you the chance to volunteer and gain work experience. Securing a volunteer role while at university is great for your CV and will be a great base for competency-based interview questions such as the STAR method, which I find really hard and gives me a lot of anxiety. So there are also some opportunities to gain casual on-campus based work for different programs such as the Wellington Hall program, which is something that I got involved in, or the Student Ambassador program. So these can help you network with Victoria University staff and can provide references when you apply for permanent positions. For students job hunting at the moment, I recommend that you apply for a number of jobs at once. So this means that you can consider your options if you get multiple job offers and can keep pushing forward if there are rejections. I also recommend to keep your pay expectations realistic, as you may have to start with entry-level pay and work your way up. Job hunting is a stressful process, especially during the COVID-19 situation, where there is less job security. So I recommend you take the time out to do activities that you enjoy doing and help you relax. So I believe that all of you are capable of getting a wonderful job, so don't give up, and the right job will come within time.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful advice, because I think I did the same when I was at university. I did the Victoria Plus.
Oh, yes.
And I did the Victoria International Leadership.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
That actually helped me a lot when I got my first job. It was like, oh, you did that when you were at university.
That's
that shows
right.
You were actually committed to your university degree. Also, you also had time to do extra things, which looks really good on your CV.
Yes, it does, definitely. And it's very good for your time management as well, which is something that you're going to need to practice when you're in the workforce, because it often is very pressured.
And any, final advice in terms of stress when as you just said that you apply for 100 jobs and you get 100 rejections. How do you deal with that?
It's so hard. Unfortunately, I do have quite a lot of anxiety, so I did take it quite personally when I got rejected for jobs. But eventually, I learned that the best way to detach was try to apply for multiple jobs at the same time and also try to understand that it's not personal to you why you may be rejected for a job. Sometimes the job market is quite informal, so someone may have a particular person in mind for the position, even though they do advertise it. And it's not saying that your skills or your experience is lacking. It's just to do with perhaps other networks that they may have or particular requirements of the job. For example, as a New Zealand-born person, it's been challenging at sometimes to get a job with international students because I may be a European New Zealander rather than being from a particular culture where international students are from, such as China, and I don't have a fluent second language. So there may be reasons why you may be rejected for jobs that aren't personal to you. But definitely, if you do feel stress and anxiety, I recommend taking time out and having time to focus on yourself. You can also do things such as volunteer or have unpaid internships when you're looking for jobs, and that will use your time wisely because you'll be able to show some skills and impress employers with work ethic, even if it is not paid.
Well, that's an amazing advice for for students, and I wish I had listened to this show like 2 years ago when I was like transitioning between work and university. I just want to thank you for coming to the show and sharing your experience.
At all. Yes, you're most welcome. It was a wonderful opportunity for me as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
On va faire les chœurs ensemble, ça va? Ouais? تدوم الشدة يلف التعلم والتفلي ما يدوم ليا يدوم صورك وصوري ويا حليل ومسكين لي غاد سعدوك زهري يا رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي أو شعل مدمون عباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي يا رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي شعل مدمون عباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي هري برافو يا يا مسافر نعطيكم صايتي فيها عالبكري شوف ما يصلح بيك ما تبيع وما تشري يا نايم جاني خبرك مع أسراري هكذا راد وغد الفل من سبحان العالي كموس يا رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي أو شعل ندموا العباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي أو يا رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي أو شعل ندموا العباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي شحال مضمون عباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي يا رايح وين مسافر نروح تعيا وتولي شحال مضمون عباد الغافلين قبلك وقبلي.
Welcome back everyone, my name is Hamid. I'm voice of Aroha sound engineer and musician. And in this part I want to talk about some music which I made few years ago with my friend who is a songwriter and music composer. We made some music few years ago and one of them is about help each other and kindness. It's Persian language and it has two singers, Mehdi and Bardia. I hope you will enjoy it. Let's play.
چه حس خوبی تو نگاهمونه، تو سینمون یه قلب مهربونه، یه عالم امید و عشق و احساس به روی دیوارای شهرمونه. دوباره دستای همو گرفتیم، دوباره ما به داد هم رسیدیم، یه عمر تو تموم لحظه هامون فقط به عشق هم نفس کشیدیم. کاری با تاریکی شب نداریم، خورشید و هر جایی باشه میاریم، دیواره بینمون رو برمیداریم، دیواره مهربونی جاش میذاریم. کاری با تاریکی شب نداریم، خورشید و هر جایی باشه میاریم، دیواره بینمون رو برمیداریم، دیواره مهربونی جاش میذاریم. یه عشقی تو دلامونه که دنیا صدای قلبمونو حس میکنه. عشق یه ایرانی به کل دنیا یه حس خوب و منعکس میکنه. وقتی میتونه رو همین زمینم عشق من و تو آسمونی بشه. تموم دیوارای زندگیمون باید دیوار مهربونی بشه. کاری با تاریکی شب نداری، خورشید و هر جایی باشه میاریم. دیوار بینمون رو برمیداریم، دیوار مهربونی جشن میذاریم. کاری با تاریکی شب نداریم، خورشید و هر جایی باشه میاریم. دیوار بینمون رو برمیداریم، دیوار مهربونی جشن میذاریم.
Thank you so much everyone for listening this song. Hope you enjoyed it. And now I wanna play last song, and it's called Cyrus the Great. It's about King of Persia, about Cyrus. Cyrus was a great king of Persia, and all Iranian people respect him because he did great things for Persia, for Iran, and we made this music for him. Hope you will enjoy it, and I wanna say goodbye. Thank you so much for having us. Cheers.
منم کوروشان پادشاه جهان، به رزم درون همچو شیری ژیان. به مهر و عطوفت چنان مادرم، به عدل و عدالت ز گیتی سرم. یگانه پرستم اهوراییم، ز بدگونه های جهان آریم. به کردار و پندار نیکو منم، به جز حرف نیکو دمی کی زنم. گل پارسی شاه ایرانیم، نگر موتنم تا بدانی کیم. به منشور گلگون بدی سوختم، لبان ددان را به هم دوختم. یگانه به ظلم جهان تاختم، ره بردگی را برانداختم. چو خاکم همان شد که میخواستم، چو گردی از این پهنه برخاستم. امانت سپردم به نیکان خود، همه دین و آیین و